another episode of the podcast. I am here today with one of my best friends, Paul Hutchinson. He is a man that, I'm just going to put it this way. When you came into my life got a lot better. How's that?
Nice.
Yeah.
Good.
So Paul has a fascinating story. I'm going to tell the story why this podcast really highlights the exceptional people I think that are here in Utah. And you are top of the list of people I wanted to interview. And the reason for that is when I first met you, I didn't know much about you. I knew you were a successful businessman and everything else and ran a really successful fund. But when I really gravitated towards you, and you probably remember this, we were at a networking event and you got up and talked about this work you were doing with this organization, Operation Underground Railroad. And this was the first time I was ever exposed to it. This was 3 years ago. They were just kind of getting going, the company and everything. And you talked about a mission you did to Colombia. Do you remember that when you got up and spoke?
I do.
And immediately, just the passion you had behind it, the way you told the story. I'm going to actually let you tell a little bit of that experience, that story, to kind of give people an insight into who you are. But that was when I first got exposed to you, and I just immediately went up to you and I said, this is a man that I need to let him know that I want to be around people like this. And so I did. I really put a lot of effort into getting to be a part of what you were doing.
I pushed you away in the beginning too.
You did. Yeah, tell the story. tell the people listening exactly how that happened, because that was a life-changing moment for me.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't try to have relationship arrogance, but the reality is sometimes you have to be cautious with your time and who occupies a lot of your time, and because there's a million, you know this now, there's a million people that would just do anything to go to lunch with Jimmy Rex. That'd be awesome. And
sure.
I just ran on. So right at first, you were like, hey Paul, I want to help. And you know, I've heard that story like 1,000 times. Yeah. Everybody does. You know, you're helping to rescue kids. You're making a massive impact in the world. Everybody wants to help. But when most people are just giving it lip service. Most people are like, yeah, I want to help. That sounds like a great idea. And they feel good about themselves because they said that. And that's as far as it goes. But you, on the totally opposite end of the spectrum, you said, no, I'm serious. How much does a mission cost? What does it cost to go in and rescue a whole bunch of kids? I said, well, you know, it's like 25 grand. You're like, okay, I want to fund a mission. I'm like really? You know? And then there was a gala where it's like $5,000 a table, and I was totally pushing you off. I'm like, you're like, hey, I want to come, I want to help, you know.
Yeah, it was like a couple of days later.
Yeah, a couple days later. Yeah, I want to come to that gala and stuff. I'm like, well, you know, because these are all like major hitters that were.
Yeah, my table was like Elizabeth Smart, Roland Gardner. It was like just people that you know in Utah. You know,
exactly.
It's pretty funny. But.
Yeah, some high-end guys, and you're like, hey, I want to write a check for that. And here we are. We've done some amazing things together.
Well, and the thing that I wanted to kind of start with that story, because yeah, it was really one of those life-changing moments for me. And I've had the opportunity now. I think we've gone on 9 ops together. We've been a part of 9 different ops and been able to rescue over almost 100 children between those ops that we did and put a lot of people away. But my life, just in so many other ways, you do so many things. I've kind of been watching you from afar, but also watching you up close, from how you throw a party to the network you have, and like you said, the type of people that you associate with. So I want to back up. I really want to dig into your story. You currently run a $10 billion, or help run a $10 billion fund.
I don't run it. I got way smarter people than me to run it. I just started it.
You started the fund, sorry. You started the $10 billion fund and was smart enough to realize that you shouldn't run it at the same time.
That's right.
So tell us, I want to hear your whole story though, like, because you didn't start there. I mean, your original goal, I remember you said.
I just woke up in the morning and my fund was $10 billion.
Yeah. Yeah, please start at the beginning. Tell us your story.
I want to be a doctor in the beginning.
Okay.
I want to be a pediatric cardiologist. You know, I didn't want to be a regular doctor. I want to be a heart doctor, a heart surgeon, right? And not a regular heart surgeon. I want to specialize in helping children. Because that's like the specialize is a specialize. I was working up at Primary Children's Hospital, and I was going to school at the U and got in a major car accident, and I severed all the tendons in my hand. And they didn't know if I'd have the dexterity to be a surgeon. I was actually putting myself through school as a concert pianist as well. I'd played for 15 years, and you know, and now I can't even. These 2 fingers are in the same tendon right now. They had to sew it all.
You can't do one without the other.
I can't. I'm playing the piano like that, you know. So anyway, they says, well, you can be a regular doctor. I'm like, I don't want to be a regular anything. You know, if I'm going to be a garbage man, I'm going to own the dump. Right? That's just how I'm wired. I'm not going to be it. So I had a friend who was a millionaire in business and a friend of the family, and he said, Paul, he says, why do you want to be a doctor? I said, I'll be honest, I want to drive a Ferrari someday, you know. Sure. I'll go to school for 12 years so I can have the money. And he laughed. He says, you know, Paul, he says, you have a very unique gift with people. He said, and so much so, I'm willing to be your mentor. He says, what do you mean? He says, first things first. He says, I want you to go find a surgeon who's where you want to be financially and take him to lunch. Ask him about their lifestyle. I did. I took the surgeon, actually did the work on my hand. And I asked him about his lifestyle. He says, Paul, I've got a beautiful cars, I've got a beautiful house, I've got a part ownership in a plane, a motorhome, I've got 2 teenage kids, and I don't even know them. I work 100 hours a week to maintain the lifestyle for my wife and kids, and it's very, very difficult. He says, and it doesn't give me the fulfillment I really want. So I went back to this mentor. I says, what are you thinking? He says, here's the thing. He says, I think that you will make way more money in business and finance than you will in medicine, and you'll have the time to enjoy it. He said, you do what I teach you to do, you'll be a millionaire by the time you're 30. And you'll have the time as well.
And how old are you at this time?
I was 21 years old.
Okay.
21, and I was just getting ready to go through medical school. And I says, okay, what do I do? Well, you got my attention now. And he says, first things first. He says, you have to learn how to handle rejection, and you have to learn how to sell, and learn how to just deal with people. He says, because every good business owner understands those principles. And he says, and it doesn't matter if you're selling a product, if you're selling real estate, if you're selling your idea to investors, your ability to communicate an idea and help other people see it from how you see it is paramount in your success financially. He says, so first things first, he says, I think that you ought to find a job that's as high a rejection sales job as you can possibly find. I'm like, okay, like high rejection? He goes, yeah. So I was looking at maybe selling knives, Cutco knives, door to door.
Sure, you know, I looked into that when I first.
I actually joined the Amway business. You know, that'll give you a rejection.
You start right at the top there.
Exactly. So I got a job at a call center, 350 sales reps, cold calling, selling children's videos.
Okay.
And there's 300 plus people that were working there. Most of those guys were making about 20 sales a week. There was 2 guys that were making 70 sales a week. And my mentor, he says, Paul, he says, you've got to work to learn. Don't work to earn. He says, if for one day you're there for a paycheck, you're wasting your time. And we're done. Because you don't want to be a telemarketer the rest of your life. He says, you're there for one purpose, and that's an education. And so when I told him there was 2 guys making 70 sales a week and the rest are making 20, he says, you need to take those 2 guys to lunch on your dime. You study what they're saying. You ask all the questions. Don't sit there and waste your time. And so I did. Every single day I took those guys to lunch. And I was asking them, okay, tell me what you're doing and stuff. And I even got audio recordings of what they were saying and studied it. And then my mentor, he says, Paul, he says, you need to take those audio recordings and listen to them in your car. He says, in fact, he said, from now on, for the rest of your life, I don't even want you to know if your car radio works. He says, you need to turn your car into a university on wheels. Yeah. He says, everywhere you go, you're listening to audio. He says, there's programs on finance and business and leadership. And he says, there's so many good things out there. He says, the most valuable piece of real estate you're ever going to own is the 6 inches between your ears. Yeah. He says, that 6 inches between your ears, more valuable than everything else you're ever going to own in your life. And you've got to figure out how to cultivate it and develop it and make it into whatever you want. So I did. He says, if you're listening to an hour of audio programs every day, and you're reading a book every single month, he said, 3 months from now, nobody will know that you're doing it. 3 years from now, most of the people that you know will know that you've been doing it.
Well, and it's funny you say that, because when I always joke around, I got my degree at the university, but I got my education in my car.
Exactly.
Same thing, right?
Exactly.
And I love that. I hope people are catching this. I think most successful people that I've interviewed, or that I'm friends with, it's the same story over and over. You have to be injecting this good and this positive, this learning into your mind all the time in order to grow and make changes in your life.
Exactly. So I did. I studied all that stuff, and within less than a month and a half, I was making 70 sales a week, like these guys that I never sold before. But I was there. I was working to learn. I was educating myself, and I was listening to these programs. And long story short, I ended up breaking all the records that were there. This is crazy too, okay? You gotta find something that's a goal that just motivates you. So I went into my boss and I says, what's the record? He goes, it's 212 sales in a week. The average person's making 20, right?
Wow, okay.
I says, what do I get if I beat that record? He says, well, what do you want? And there's a Mont Blanc pen on his desk, right? It's a $100 pen, right? I'm like, oh, that'd be awesome. I says, I want your Mont Blanc pen if I can beat that. He goes, you got it. I mean, I'm sure he made way
sure,
more than that.
I 10 more of them.
Exactly. So I came back in the next week and I did like 230 sales. Well, one of those two guys that had held the record for 5 years, he's like, this brand new guy just beat my... So he comes, he's working double overtime the next week. He does like 230 something sales. I'm like, game on, right? So I went home and all weekend long, all I did was study handling objections and closing techniques and rewriting the scripts and everything the whole weekend. I came back in on fire with the confidence and pure belief and faith that I was going to get there, and did over 300 sales in 1 week.
Wow.
Boom, nailed it. Ended up building a marketing company that it had 200 plus employees. Sold that company when I was 29 years old for over $1 million.
Awesome. So you hit the goal.
So I hit my goal that he had promised me. Now, a lot of it was in stock. I ended up putting. It was actually a lot more than $1 million. I ended up, it was like 20 plus, but most of it in stock. And I had enough cash where I started investing in real estate. And then I realized one of the things my mentor told me. He said, every single person you meet is smarter than you in some way. He says, and the worst thing you can ever do is get involved in a business and think that just because you are successful in something else, you're going to be successful in that. He says, some of the success principles work, but you've got to surround yourself with people who understand where the pitfalls are. You know, there's two little sayings that we always say that are complete crap. One of them is experience is the best teacher. That's total crap. Somebody else's experience is a better teacher. Because they went through a whole hell of a lot.
Better to let them go through it than yourself if you can, right?
Exactly. And the other one is practice makes perfect. No, perfect practice makes perfect. If I'm out there golfing and I have no idea what I'm doing,
do it all day long.
Exactly. You know, you're doing the wrong. So perfect practice makes perfect. And so I realized that if I kept investing my money in real estate, I was going to lose all my money. Unless I had some professionals that knew.
Is that because you just didn't have the right people?
I didn't know anything at the time.
You just knew you should invest in real estate.
Yeah, I knew that. I thought it was a fantastic place. But you know, I was doing stupid. I was spec houses, buying some land and building something, hoping somebody buys it. You know, crap like that. You know, we all do that. And so I surrounded myself with the team and realized, you know what, this team is somebody we can take something here. So we ended up building in the beginning it was me and a guy by the name of John Pennington. And it took us an entire year to raise $2 million. Now, we're raising $10 million a day right now.
Yeah. Well, at this time, when you first started with John, what was your goal? Like, you guys had just started this little fund. What was your goal that you originally had?
Let me put it this way. We wanted to team up with this other group. In fact, the founder is just down the street. He's a friend of mine. Harvard and they were like 80 million under management. I thought, 80 million, that's such a big number. And they says, you know what, we like you guys and your ideas, and we wanted to be part of their company. How can we be partners? And I remember Ryan Relay, he's like, Paul, he says, if you can raise $20 million, we'll give you part ownership and partnership here. And I got sick to my stomach. I thought, yeah, 20 million? I can't even imagine a number like that. Yeah. You know? And so John and I are like, if we can do that, let's just do this on our own. So we tried on our own. We, like I say, a year later raised a couple million, but over time I started seeing it bigger and bigger. And John will say this all the time. He says, you know, when we really started going and I started bringing in 50,000 here, 100,000 here, then I started seeing the possibility of success. And we'd be sitting there. Our office was so small we'd hit elbows when we turned around. It was just the two of us. And we would have a property we needed to close on. We needed we needed $200,000 by Friday, and we were close. We needed just $25,000 more. And I'd be on the phone and I'd be calling people, investors, potential investors, and stuff. And I'd turn around and I'd say, John, we're going to be $1 billion fund, just like that, you know.
For Austin Powers.
Exactly, $1 billion fund. And he'd say, Paul, shut up, get back on the phone. I need $25,000 by Friday. But when John and I, when you talk to John, you realize that I've always been the kite and he was the string. Now realize this.
But you kind of need that yin and yang in a business relationship.
I can't tell you how many guys who have the vision and energy and passion that I do that weren't smart enough to bring a John on their team that ended up doing something stupid. Especially when you're dealing with other people's money, you have to cross every T and dot every I. You have to do it right or you end up in jail.
Yep.
And so realizing the importance of having somebody like that on my team allowed me to be the kite. Nobody cares about that string until it's cut. Yeah. And then that kite falls really, really fast. And so that's, you know, I can't tell you how many times I come into John, I'm like, John, I already looked into it. Here's my layout. We're gonna have a banner. I'm gonna put it up on one of the boards on I-15. You know, we paid at 21.3% last year. And he's like, Paul, you can't do that. It's a private offering. You know, that just doesn't work. And so having that yin and yang, having that partnership there was so important for me, and it allowed me to fly. John will say so many times in the beginning, he would get frustrated because it was 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and he was in the office, and he was getting some contracts done and everything else, and he was just staying late, and he'd call me up because he had a question on something. And I'd be at the jazz game with clients. And at the beginning, he's like, oh man, I'm doing all the work, he's having all the fun. But John was smart enough to understand my strengths and my role and my ability to go out and just create those relationships and put them all together. And that's, you know, that kind of leads into what you were saying in the beginning with some party stuff too. You know, do I like parties? Not really.
Sure, it's a lot of effort to throw a good party. That's what people don't realize is the amount of effort that actually goes into it. It's not always fun for the party thrower.
And the cleanup, holy crap. So I had 300 people at my house on New Year's.
Yeah.
I woke up the next morning and I looked around thinking, the hell was I thinking? You know, the place was a disaster.
Sure.
Stuff everywhere. I thought, oh my. But what I do is I realize that I've got relationships with amazing people.
Yeah, you do.
And I've got other amazing people that I want relationships with, and I can't just call them up and say, hey, you know, I'm Paul, you should meet me. No, you know. Instead, what I do is I'll throw an event, whether it's a movie night, whether it's a Krav Maga training, whether it's a Halloween party or New Year's, whatever else, and I'll invite these power players. And it's always amazing to me how many of the John Pastanas of the world don't know the Rudy Goberts of the world, you know, and they're powerful, and they love coming together and connecting with people who have also made a couple hundred.
Well, even since I met you, you know, I mean, I've been able to bring people into your circle, and you brought a lot of people into my circle that we would have probably maybe never crossed paths, or who knows, but so much collaboration can get done there as you start to meet each other and do these things.
And I think that's so important, and you of all people know this as good as anybody. Your network, and it doesn't matter if you're in the real estate business, the fund business, the charity business, whatever else, your network makes such a huge impact in your success in your life. And so many people just sit back and think, oh, I've got my little group of 3 friends and whatever else, why do I want to just step out? It's so important.
For sure.
And it's also important to see that there are some guys, and I did a little mini video on this, but there are guys that you can see in them. This guy is going to rock the world. I just see from his energy and the direction he is, and building a close relationship with him and building them up at the right time. Once they do get to that point,
they never forget who got them.
They never forget. I can't tell you, you know, Sean Reyes is one of my best friends in the world. And we were good friends way before he ever even decided to run for Attorney General. And I could tell this was a man of integrity. This was a man willing to work hard. This is a man who really saw the challenges in this state and wanted to make a huge difference. You know, there are kings and there are kingmakers.
For sure.
You know, I don't want to be a king. No, I have zero interest in having that kind of a target on me. You know, I got way too many skeletons in my closet to ever run for office.
I've been undercover with you, I know.
Exactly. That's way too much crap. So because of that, I instead try to identify really good people with that hold the same ideals as you and I, and then make sure that they're in a position that they can help make our community, our state, our nation a better place to live.
Oh, that's great. So I want to touch on this a little bit because you, not only your network is so good, but you found a partner that was, I think so many people try to start a business. I know my first couple of partners, it didn't really work out very well. How did you identify such a great partner in John so early on in, you know, before you guys ever had anything going?
Well, let me tell that story by telling you how many failures I had in that arena.
Okay.
Yeah, because I can't tell you how, and I still make these same stupid mistakes. I look back and I say, okay, what were my successful companies and what were my fantastic partners, and how did I meet them versus the ones that caused me enormous headache and stress later on. You know, the number one, John was already successful before I met him. He had run a company. They did over $9 million in import-export. Verifiable. He was very successful, number one. Number two, he was solid as a man of integrity through and through. I never saw him even say to me, hey, you know, we should do this to this person because it would get us more money. Realize as soon as somebody operates with a lack of integrity towards somebody else,
coming back to you.
They have the potential of operating in lack of integrity with you. And so I look at the failed partnerships and the mentality of these people. And number one, I'm going to just tell you horror stories and how those partners thought and why everything fell apart. So I had one partner where I kind of felt like Elizabeth Smart's dad, Ed Smart. You know, this was a guy who was close to homeless, having challenges, and I just loved him. I loved him, and I helped him, and I gave him a job. What I should have done is kept him as a person that I was giving a job to, instead of giving the keys to the front door and the back door and saying, "Hey, I want to be your business partner." Because as soon as that happens, as soon as you've heard the old saying, "Mind your own business." It's so important in your own businesses to keep your mind in your own business. I kind of turned over the reins and everything else to somebody who, and I'm not blaming this person, I'm actually blaming myself in this situation because I didn't bring my business acumen, my business expertise to the table and really focus there. I just kind of said, you know what, this is a guy that needs a break. I'm going to give him an opportunity and I'm going to let him run with it and I'm going to focus over here. And boom, all of a sudden things were falling apart. That nobody was keeping track of the finances. Money was, and it was very, very frustrating. And then what happens is this. If you have somebody who didn't already make something and you give to them, this is what frustrates me and makes me so sad. Is when those very people turn around and try to stab you in the back, try to say that you're the enemy. They forget about the fact that you gave and gave and gave and gave and gave, and then when things got crappy because they didn't participate or whatever else, you're like, okay, you know what, I need to put that back into this court so that I can run some things, and now all of a sudden, you're a pile of shit. You're the worst person in the world, and unfortunately, you've been so close to them, now they can create a lot of havoc.
I had multiple experiences in the same regard where either maybe you help somebody in a situation, but then all of a sudden it's like you have to like hold them accountable to it, and all of a sudden they start disparaging your name when you were just helping them out in the first place. You had nothing to gain. You simply wanted to help that person out. So I totally, from that standpoint.
So keys in success relationships. Number one, finding somebody who already has some fruit on the tree, so that you're not just being a charity case. You know, I tell people all the time, and I need to live by this. From a charity standpoint, the reason why I focus with Operation Underground Railroad and the Child Liberation Foundation and I don't like to give money to a 40-year-old man who made bad decisions in his life, and now he's on the side of Salt Lake downtown and asking me for drug money, right? But a 9-year-old child in a position completely outside of any decisions that she ever made, that's something I can get behind and figure out how to make a difference.
Well, and I've seen that passion that you have. Like, we talked about earlier going undercover. And when you first, tell the story real quick of when your first operation, because that is the story that lit me up. I literally was choked up listening to you tell it, and I knew I had to be a part of it. And tell that story a little bit, because it's really defined who you are. I mean, you spend half your time now probably working with charities and doing these different things with Child Liberation Foundation and everything else.
Well, and I'll tell you why real quick, and then I'll tell that story.
Okay.
You know, I realized a long time ago that my success, and this is just a deal I have with God. This doesn't go for everybody, right? But if I work really hard at my business goals, I have decent results. But if I work really hard and I try to have a powerful, positive impact in the lives of others, especially the truly innocent, I have enormous results in my business goals. And what's crazy is these results never come from my own efforts. They always come from a higher source, from God. They always come out of left field. I was like, wow, did that really just happen there? And I think that God does it that way because he realizes that Paul Hutchinson has a propensity to have an ego, so he wants me to know that I had nothing to do with the growth of a $10 billion fund.
I mean, put that over $10 billion. That's what you guys are currently managing.
Yeah.
And you said most of this came after you started doing the charity things. It just
was 1.5 million when I met Tim Ballard.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just exploded, and
Tim's the founder
of Operation Underground Railroad. Yeah, when I started when I started really and I decided with, I'll tell you the story now. I decided when I first met Tim Ballard, I was not interested in just writing a check. I want to make a difference, whatever it was. If I needed to raise a whole bunch more money, if I needed to be there in any way, whatever I could do, I wanted to be a big part of it. And what had happened is Tim had been doing some let me put it this way. If a 12-year-old gets kidnapped in Utah and taken across a border, there's a 90+% chance that she's in a child sex ring organization because they can make $250,000 a year off that 12-year-old girl. Wow. If you're following fingerprints and leads, you'll never find her. She's gone. But Tim had this brilliant idea. I'm going to go in and pose as a wealthy American interested in some horrible things. And he ends up connecting with the trafficking ring. And what happened at first is, he had found 30 children in South America. The government wouldn't give him the money to make it all. He needed like $50,000 to rescue those kids. And so he quit, started the private organization. I helped to fund that mission. 2 months later, Tim had called me. And he said, Paul, he says, I found 20 more children in Cartagena, Colombia. I need your help. I said, well, how much do you need? He said, I need you. Can you be in Colombia in 2 days? He said, I have to have somebody who can walk the walk and talk the talk of a U.S. real estate mogul. He says, the head trafficker down here who has 14 children that are being raped 5 and 6 times a day has a piece of property he wants to develop into a child brothel sex hotel, and he needs $1 million to do it. I mean, that's horrific. Can you even imagine people in this world that think that way?
Wow. Yeah.
And he says, we found out instead of 20 children in the area, there's closer to 50. And somehow we need to get this guy to call those other traffickers and get them to bring their children so that we can rescue them all at one time. He said, we believe he'll make those calls if he thinks that the only way that you're going to fund his hotel is if he can prove to you that he can fill it by having a party for you and your buddies and 50 kids. And he knew more about my background than most people. I'm not going to tell everything online, but I've had a lot of training. A lot. I went through 3 months worth of training with the FBI years ago. That's how I met Sean Reyes, our Attorney General. He and I at that point had taken 20 different courses with Green Berets and Navy SEALs. So he knew I wouldn't be a liability going down, but he needed somebody who could wear a $4,000 suit and a $50,000 watch and pretend to do $1 million.
Talk about $1 million transaction.
Exactly. Exactly. Sure. So we get down there, and I'll tell you the long version. You can cut out whatever you want. So we fly in, meet with, there's 2 ex-Navy SEALs, there's 2 double black belt guys, and there's some CIA guys, ex-CIA guys there, and there's 4 traffickers. There's 3 males and 1 female. This female was Miss Cartagena. She ran a fake modeling agency. Oh man. She was going around to towns in South America telling these parents, oh, your daughter's way too pretty to be working the field. She should be a model. And these parents would believe her. Oh yeah, and bring the kids to a little tryout picture thing, and then they're gone. Horrible woman. And so we're sitting there, and they were so excited I was willing to take a look at their hotel deal and everything else, that Fuego was standing right there across from me, and he says, Pablo, he says, I have a gift for you. I said, really, what's your gift? And he hands me his phone, and there's a picture of a 10-year-old girl on his phone. He says, this is Lady. She's still a virgin. We just took delivery of some. She's my gift for you for this party. He started talking these horrible things I do to this little girl, and I thought, if we could get these kids out before they're ever raped the first time, that would be a miracle. And something he said made me realize that there was more than just her. I says, Fuego, I says, you took delivery? I says, do you have more virgins? He goes, oh yeah, I got 3 or 4 more. I says, you have to bring those to my party. I'm very interested in those. I was. We had to figure out how to get them out.
Yeah,
too.
For sure.
He says, oh no, he says, they're too expensive. I said, they're too expensive? Where I was already paying $25,000 for the party. We're paying $500 per child for 50 children just for 2 hours in the afternoon with them. He says, Jefe, which is boss in Spanish. He goes, Jefe, he says, you're already going to pay $25,000? He says, you want to F a virgin? It's going to cost you, I edited that for the right? So he says, you want to fuck a virgin? It's going to cost you an extra $2,000, maybe $5,000 for that little one. I'm so mad at him. Just like, I'm like, he's like, it'd be an extra $10,000. I says, you don't think I can afford an extra $10,000? He goes, oh no, Jefe, no. I said, I want every one of those virgins at my party. I said, they damn well better be virgins when they get there. They're not for you, they're for me, you understand? He goes, oh yeah, Jefe, this stupid little smile on his face. Yeah. 2 weeks later, we fly back in. Sean Reyes, our Attorney General, is there. We have Tim Ballard to put this whole thing together. Ex-CIA guys. There's 15 buddies of mine for the party. They're all ex-Navy SEALs and stuff, right? They're all partying. And these guys, we meet with the U.S. Embassy, the federal agents. These federal agents provided 40 agents for us. 4 of them were our maids. 4 of them were our waiters. 4 of them were our cooks. They weren't very good cooks. Yeah. You've been on ops, you know these guys suck, right? So, but they were armed, so that was good. And 25 of them were there to storm the party at the right time. And these guys show up with 54 children. Wow. Yeah, almost every one of them were under the age of 16. More than half were kidnapped, many from other countries, and that's where things started to change for me, to actually see the kids. And you know, we put them in a separate area of the house because they're already traumatized enough. We don't want them to see the guns and the knives I mean, it's scary.
No, it's intense.
It's intense. When the agents come in, the agent's putting cuffs on me as the agent whose office we were in the day before planning it all, right? So we're there, Fuego, in the middle of this meeting, and we got money there on the table, and we got undercover cameras everywhere. Fuego stands up and he goes, Pablo, he says, I have to show you the gifts that I brought you. And this is where everything changed, Jimmy. We were sitting there, he went in the house, he was in there for like 10 minutes. And he comes back out and he has the 4 virgins. Scared. These kids were scared. It was obvious. There's 3 little girls, there's 1 little boy. This little boy was 11 years old. They gave him cocaine that morning because he was so scared it was going to hurt. I'm going to swear right now, what kind of fucked up monster thinks that that's attractive? Yeah. My hell, I mean, every cell in my body wanted to just hug these kids and say, you're going to be fine. I couldn't say that. I'm like, you know.
You have to act the role out.
This little girl, she's tear stains on her little makeup face. Where I held her hands, I just said, está bien, it's okay. I was so glad it was us there and not some monster, you know? I mean, this crap happens every weekend. Yeah. There are screwed up guys who go down that I don't even know how they get to that point that think that that's okay. You know, the kids went back in the house, and the most beautiful moment for me was half an hour later after the agents had come and stormed the party and arrested everybody and taken Fuego and the guys away, 30 Child Protective Services people came in with the children, and then they started singing, they started laughing, and that sound of freedom. That was the most beautiful sound I ever heard. I started crying. I've got video of me just bawling. I got a selfie of me, and I can hear the kids in the area. I'm just bawling, and I told Tim, I said, what can I do? I want to help. Yeah. I says, I want to make a difference. I says, I'll write you a check right now. I says, how much do you need? You know, I says, I had a goal of buying a supercar this year. I'm probably never going to buy a Ferrari. I want to write you a check. I want to help rescue kids.
Well, you've rescued how many kids now? I mean, you've been on a lot more ops than anyone else, I think, out of everybody. But do you have any idea the number on the ops of how many children you've rescued?
If you count triple take on that one, the 3 cities that I wasn't involved in all 3, but part of the whole thing. Sure. I've been personally involved with the rescue of over 300 of these kids. Wow. And that's changed everything for me. Yeah.
Well, what a gift to tie it back to your story from before. Mm-hmm. I mean, look at what you've been able to do with your life and the influence you've had, even bringing in somebody like me that's helped, and you've brought in 50 people like me, right? I mean, Andy and everyone else, whatever. But my point is like, it kind of ties back to how hard you worked to become the type of person that would have this influence and have the opportunity presented to you because of who you were and what you built. And that's what I really tie from your story is like, you know, you worked so hard to build this and become this person that now the reward is you helped rescue literally over 300 kids that, you know, changed their time. And how many other kids never knew they would have been in trafficking had you not put those other traffickers away?
That was personally being there. You know, you and I have raised a lot of money that has gone to operations that we weren't a part of. Sure. And awareness as well. You know, let me tell you this story in terms of, you know, back to good things happening because you make a difference. Glenn Beck is a dear, dear friend of mine. And introduced through Tim, and we've just, what a wonderful man. And he wanted to launch his anti-child trafficking campaign from Bangkok, Thailand. And it took a lot to get his whole team in there, the cameraman and everything else. I mean, it was a big, big deal. And it cost a lot of money, over 6 figures to make it all happen. Wow, okay. And we decided, we're going to step up. Because you know, creating awareness of something like this, that's so much more important than just my role.
Yeah, single ops are awesome, but the awareness is what makes the grand change.
That's the big difference. And so we knew that would just, with his enormous audience, we needed to get him there. So we took care of that. As I landed on the way back from that trip, I got a call from, I'm not going to say the name because everybody would know, from an investor that he says, Paul, he says, I've been looking at the numbers. I want to put another $10 million in your funds. And then I had a second message. I had 2 voicemails. That was 10, and the other one was even a bigger number. My fund grew well over $20 million from 2 quick phone calls that I believe, and these guys knew where I was. They knew that I was rescuing kids and everything else, and it just made a huge difference. And so making a powerful impact in the world, and this is an important little point too. A lot of you guys have remember Stephen Covey, and he has 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and all of his books. He has a little thing where he talks about a circle of concern and a circle of influence. I changed that a little bit for my own life. Let me tell you how I work it, because this makes all the difference for me in terms of my attitude and my desire to expand my influence. Every single day I say, okay, here's my circle of concern. There's all these things in there I could be worried about. And here's my circle of influence. And for most of us, our circle of influence is a little teeny circle, and the circle of concern is so big, right?
Sure.
I make a conscious decision every day to do one of 2 things. If there's something that's inside of my circle of concern that I don't have any power to influence whatsoever, I either push it out, and if it keeps coming back in, then I decide I've got to increase my circle of influence to make a difference there. So I can sit through life and say, oh man, children are being trafficked and whatever else, but my circle of influence is this big, I'm just going to not worry about it. It kept coming in, and I realized this is something I can't push outside of my circle of concern. Something needs to be done. And so I simply continue to increase my circle of influence every day, so that when things come into my circle of concern, I can do something about it.
Oh, I love that.
Do something about it.
I love that.
So,
well, I want to kind of pivot here for a little bit. We got a couple more. I know you've got some meetings downtown and everything else, but I want to talk a couple questions that you have a new thing that you're doing called the Hutch 2020. And it's a series you have. If you guys are looking for a really good page to follow on YouTube, that's the name of the page, right? The Hutch 2020.
Yeah. People ask me, "Are you running for office in 2020?"
Yeah.
I'm like, hell no. I'm not
so why is it called the Hutch 2020? And on here, you give a bunch of lessons over and over, quick 3-4 minute lessons that you've learned from your mentors. A lot of them, I'm guessing, is this man that you told us about before. So what exactly is that? And give us a few of those lessons.
The reason I picked 2020 is because 2020 is like perfect vision.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And they always say hindsight is 2020. So this is my 2020 hindsight. This is my perfect vision of all of the lessons that I got to me to this point. I wish I could watch all of my videos myself back when I was 21. It would have saved me a lot of time.
Yeah, right. I always joke. I'm like, I'd go punch my 24-year-old face. That guy was an idiot, you know?
Exactly. So that's all that it is. It's just a 2020 vision of really what I should have done, what I did do, what worked, what didn't work, everything. It's a combination of mentoring and education and motivation, and
love it. And why did you decide to do that? What are some of the lessons, or why did you decide to do that?
Here's what about 4 or 5 months ago, I had taken down all of my social media so I could do all of the undercover work. I'm just like, you know what? I don't have the time for it. I have zero desire. In fact, the reality is, even 3 or 4 months ago, when Tony Robbins and Glenn Beck and some other good friends are saying, Paul, your ability to share these stories is powerful. You can make a massive impact in the world by sharing these stories of success and what you're doing with the children and helping make a difference there. I told them this. I said, you know what? My desire to have a huge social media following ranks right up there with my desire to shovel crap every day the rest of my life. I don't need it.
Yeah.
I've got a wonderful life. I've got a beautiful home. I've got great people around me.
By the way, you have great children too. Like your kids are amazing. Well, and it's just a testament to everything that you've done. Your kids are amazing, and it's I hate to say this, but I do judge on some level people by how their kids turn out. And your kids are awesome. So I mean, you not only have this business and charity life, all these things, but you do have a great family life.
Well, and my little video things, I talk about being a dad a lot, and the things that I learned and the things that worked and what didn't work as well.
Right.
And so in answer to your question, let me put it this way. Back in the 1700s, there was a man by the name of William Wilberforce. Most of us don't even remember who he was. The reason why you don't remember is because he did a really good job of what he did. He was arguably the #1 determining factor in the world of changing the world opinion of slavery.
Okay.
Now, even he was before the Civil War, and he was the one that started. Before his time, it was generally accepted worldwide among everybody that it was perfectly okay to own another human being. Whether it was a male or a female, whether it was black or white, it didn't matter. If you purchased that human being, for some reason they were in that situation of being a slave, it was what it was. You know, you saw the movie Gladiator. We sit here and think, wait, why did he was a slave? Why couldn't he just, that's how it was. If you happen to be in that position, you ended up being a slave, you were sold, it was what it was, you know? And so he wanted to change the opinion, and he was a wealthy, successful, influential business owner that had some political connections and others. And so what he decided to do was not just go in there and just pull out and rescue the slaves. He decided that he was going to create awareness on a big scale, especially among the influencers. So what he would do is he would have dinner parties on his yacht or his ship, whatever it was back in the 1700s. And he would, in the middle of the dinner party, he would have the captain take that boat and go park it right next to the slave ships. And the stench and the pain and the death and the blood and the chains and everything else just kind of shook up his group. They're like, oh, what's going on? And then he would have the captain take it away, and then he would talk to them about what's going on. And the only reason why I'm building a network online is this. Yes, I want to make a difference and share with people what I did from a business standpoint or whatever else. The goal is actually to create multiple verticals, people that are interested in business and finance, and people are interested in all these different things. And once I have enough of a following, then I can start sharing what really matters. My business success principles matter a little bit. They matter a lot if you're going to use them to do good. Yeah. But what really matters is helping people see what you can do with that power and influence once you get to that point, to make a powerful, positive impact in the lives of millions of people. I have in my I'm just redoing my office so it's down, but I'll show you when it's back up. You know, when I was a kid, I used to have a poster that had a thing, he who has the most toys wins, right? And it had a Ferrari, Lamborghini, all these things up, right? That was my motivation. He who has the most toys wins, you know? Now mine says he who has a powerful, positive impact in the most lives wins.
That's a great.
And if I can share, I've seen it. You've seen it. I have been there where a trafficker opens up a 6-foot steel door. There's a 12-year-old sitting on a concrete step just inside the door, and then goes down this dark black alley. And there are 6 doors that were all a little smaller steel. Open them up, and there's a metal bed that's hung by a chain on the side of the wall with a blanket on each one of them where she keeps the children. And in the back area, the most horrific sight of all was a larger bedroom, a room with a queen-size bed that's sitting on the ground and where the unthinkable happens. I've seen it. I've seen children being sold. I was in Bangkok, Thailand, and Glenn had he had this guy, Jason, that had worked with him for a while, that Glenn says, I want to see it. I want to see undercover stuff. I want to see children being sold. And to see that it's really real. And Tim says, Glenn, that's really dangerous. He says, no, not me. I want to send Jason's been in Pakistan, Afghanistan. He's done, you know, investigative reporting on all this stuff. And so he says, okay. So I took Jason out that night, rocked his world. You can watch it on the Glenn Beck show. It's back in what was it, April of last year, whatever else, when he went down with us. Rocked his world. This little 11-year-old, but she wasn't just 11. She must have weighed like 35, 40 pounds. She was tiny for sale. And they had drugged her. Now, this is a dark subject. I don't want to go dark.
Yeah, we'll give a disclaimer on this episode because it is dark. But at the same time, the hope of it is what I think attracts so many people.
I'm telling you, if your goal is to make a massive impact in the world, you know, pulling a child out of hell, that makes a big difference. But you know what? I'm not saying just do that. There are a lot of areas that you can go out and make a big difference. And this is an important little quote. I had a mentor once that said to me, he says, Paul, I use things, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, big houses, look at what you want. He says, I use things to motivate people to do the right thing long enough for them to realize the right reason to be doing it.
Wow, that's a quote right there.
And you can make that happen in your own life too. It's okay. It's okay to have a vision board. It's okay to have your Ferrari and Lamborghini and your boats and everything. Because guess what? It's really hard to motivate yourself to work a 15-hour day just so you can go make a difference in the world. It's just hard. It is hard. So it's okay. It's just how the mind works. It's okay. Motivate yourself with things. It's okay. Use things to motivate yourself to do the right thing long enough for you to realize the right reason to be doing it.
Wow, that's great. Well, I think that's that kind of sums you up to a T too. Is it's okay to be able to have these things that motivate you, and it does create a situation where people realize that you're the type of person they want to, connect to, surround themselves with in order to make these differences. And like you said, whatever that difference is for you, whatever you're passionate about, whether it's animals or kids or homeless, whatever it might be, So, well, we're out of time, but I wanted to kind of last question. I have one more question. It's just because you started at such a young age and you mentor a lot of people as well. What advice would you give to a 20-year-old listening to this right now? He sees what you've done, what you've been able to do, the difference you've been able to make, and he wants to do the same thing, or she wants to do the same thing. What advice would you have as a 20-year-old? Just quickly, a couple of minutes, what advice would you give to that person? 2 or 3 things. First of all, success is 99% attitude and 1% attitude. It's all attitude. It's your mental vision of where you want to be, and you've got to believe it. I'm going to tell you this quick little story. We'll take a little bit more time here, but you can bring it in because this is powerful. Actually, I'm going to tell this story and then make sure I come back to this again. Okay. When I went to Haiti on the very first time that I was there, Glenn Beck was there. We were going around with him, and there were some families that were adopting some children, and I was just hosting Glenn and getting some video of that. That night, maybe I won't go into all the details of this. In fact, I'm just going to skip it out of here. I'm just going to do this. So skip that part. Okay, I'm going to tell you my philosophy on fear and faith. Because this is how I've built my empires. This is how I've built my relationships. This is how I've got in the door with all of the most powerful people. And this is how I've found these children, is using this one principle. Most people think that faith is going to church and asking God to fix things in their life that they don't believe are going to be fixed. That's important. Faith is a principle of power. It is the most powerful law in the universe and the most dependable when used properly. And it is simply this: it is the unwavering conviction that what I want to have happen will happen. So a 21-year-old kid that he needs to visualize where he wants to be, have unwavering conviction. Now the problem is, most things in life, it's difficult for us to have unwavering conviction because we don't know if it's in line with what our higher power, our God wants. Sure.
Yeah. Should I marry this woman? Should I move into this house? Should I start this new job? When I'm helping to find these kids, I'm 100% certain that God wants me to find these children, and we're able to and it just happens every single time. I believe that it is perfectly okay for me to be financially successful because I know that I'm going to use it to do good. Now, this is just a battle you have to figure out in your own mind. But when you believe that it is right and you have complete, unwavering conviction and you see it and you visualize it, and then be willing to do whatever it takes. There isn't any lazy multimillionaires. No. Unless they inherited it somewhere or got a lottery thing, whatever else. You've got to be willing. There were days that I worked 16, 18 plus hours that day. And I remember I was working a regular job and I was building my business in the evenings. And I'd be driving home. I had to wake up at 6 the next morning. I'd be driving home. It's after midnight. And I'd roll down my window and I'd say, "Go ahead and sleep, losers. I'm going to be a millionaire." Right? That was just my mindset. I was willing to do. So another advice was, be willing to do today what the average person won't do, so that you can enjoy tomorrow what the average person can't even comprehend.
Wow. I think it's a great place to finish that up. That's such a great quote. Hopefully anybody listening to this, I'd go back and listen twice. You probably dropped about 12 pearls in there. Just different quotes and comments and things like that. So This has been one of my favorite interviews. You're one of my favorite people in the world, and look forward to many more great times ahead.
You're good, man, Jimmy.
Thanks, my man.
I appreciate you.
Thanks, Paul. Love you, buddy. Thanks.